Gambia registered 68 COVID-19 new cases as the number of infections slows down. The European Union pledges 400 million euros for the development of vaccine against the COVID-19 pandemic. And South Africans renewed their call for tougher sanctions to end gender-based violence in the country. Well, this and more coming on The World Today. Hello, this is Africa TV and you are watching the World Today News Bulletin. I am Amadou Kante. Many thanks for joining us. And now the news in detail. Now nearly 3,000 people are now infected with the coronavirus in the Gambia since the country had its first case in March this year. The country began to see a surge in cases around mid-July when community infections began to rise. The CISA has more of that in this report.
The Gambia on Friday registered 68 new COVID-19 cases, taking the total number of cases to 2,963. Those tested positive are between the ages of 4 and 78 years, and there has been no new deaths. With 281 new recoveries, the total number of people who have recovered from the virus is now 1,032 so far, according to the Ministry of Health. The Gambia currently has 44 people in quarantine, 1,835 active cases, 261 probable cases, and a crude case fatality ratio of 3.2%. On August 27th, President Adama Barrow extended a nighttime curfew by another 21 days and maintained a state of emergency rules meant to curb the spread of the virus. In Africa, there are more than 1.2 million cases, over 29,000 deaths, and more than 900,000 recoveries, according to the Africa Center for Disease Control. Globally, there are more than 25 million confirmed coronavirus cases and more than 800,000 deaths in 216 countries, areas or territories, according to the WHO. For iAfrica News, I am Daisy Cisse.
And from the report on the situation of the coronavirus in the country, next to matters of the European Union, because the EU Monday committed 400 million euros as guarantees to COVAX facility and its goals. COVAX is the vaccine pillar of the Access to COVID-19 Tools Accelerator and a new groundbreaking global collaboration to accelerate development, production and equitable access to the COVID-19 test, treatment and vaccines. Here's more details of that in this report.
The COVAX idea is being championed by the World Health Organization and 172 countries worldwide, which launched a global call for action last week. The President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, said the EU's 400 million euros contribution will enable the world to develop and deploy vaccines, testing and treatment for all. The EU also commits to buy billions of COVID-19 vaccine doses from several vaccine makers by the end of 2021.
We will join COVAX together with our EU member states as Team Europe. And the Commission will also make a contribution of 400 million euro in guarantees to the COVAX facility and its goals. This contribution will help buy and deliver doses of future vaccines for low and middle income countries.
The EU Commission President also called for a global solidarity in the fight against the COVID-19 global pandemic.
We will not be safe until everyone, whether here in Europe or out there in the world, is safe. We need global solidarity. The European Commission's contribution to COVAX brings us one step closer to this goal.
Since the outbreak of the novel coronavirus at the end of 2019, the world has intensified efforts in the search for a lasting solution for the virus, but to no avail. According to the World Health Organization, more than 25 million people have contracted the virus worldwide, and over 800,000 people have lost their life as a result.
The European Union there recommits its commitment in the fight against the COVID-19 pandemic. And from that report, we come back home, or we come back to matters of home issues, because restaurant owners in the Gambia were forced to make adjustments on how to serve customers due to the COVID-19 outbreak, but with frequent updates to the coronavirus regulations and the introduction of new rules, some restaurants are finding it very difficult to adapt. Ibrahim Sanko tells us more of that.
Restaurants had since March been allowed to take out service only, but the introduction of a nightly curfew, which the government said is intended to curb the spread of the coronavirus, has shut down some items in the menu, like lamb chops or afra, which largely sells at night. Alaji Chono Drame, the CEO of Afra Scala, said the curfew has not helped restaurant owners like him.
You take a more lockdown be number one, but number two, curfew be.
We are encountering difficulties because of the rules levied on us are many. The lockdown number 1 and 2, the curfew, especially my business. My business works best at night because I sell dinner and people normally go out at 10 p.m. to buy dinner. I close my kitchen latest 12 at night. The starting of the curfew at 10 p.m. is not helping anybody because nobody will go out at 7 or 8 to look for dinner. Some people take dinner at 7 or 8 while others go for dinner around 12 a.m.
Drame said the government can introduce safe mechanisms that are in line with the WHO's recommendation but not a curfew.
Why curfew be that you are
The curfew has not done us any good. The government should come up with measures like whoever is going to a restaurant should wear a mask, wash hands, and we have been doing that from a long time before the curfew. People have different ideas because there are people who are happy about the curfew, but who are they? They are people not holding business.
TV images show the police enforcing the curfew, preventing theft and break-ins, but the Afra Scala boss said the curfew was not meant to curb theft, and it is not a good measure to curb the spread of the virus.
The curfew starts at 10, and before 10, people are in the markets, people are in the supermarkets, people are in the transport. In the Gambia, people don't used to go out at night. Most errands are run during the daytime. If anyone goes out at night, know that the person is going to buy dinner, but nobody goes out with family members at night, go to a naming ceremony, not even a funeral.
The Barrow-led administration is enforcing emergency regulation that divided businesses into two, essential and non-essential. The essential businesses are those dealing in food and food products and are allowed to open from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m., while non-essential businesses that sell everything but food open from 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. The government measures hurt businesses and daily wage earners and did not halt a rapid increase in the number of coronavirus cases and deaths since Sonko.
The impact of COVID-19 also affecting restaurant owners in the Gambia like many other businesses. And from that report, next to matters of the political situation in Mali, because the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, had a virtual conference on Friday demanding an immediate civilian transition in Mali and that elections be held within 12 months. The West African leaders sought borders to Mali and trade with the landlocked nation after soldiers overthrew President Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta on August 18. Details of that in this report by Fatoumata Fateh.
ECOWAS chairperson Mahamudu Issoufou of Niger called on the leadership of the National Committee for the Salvation of the People to immediately begin the process of a civilian transition in consultation with the Constitutional Court and relevant parties and stakeholders. On August 24th, reports emerged that Mali's junta wanted a 3-year transition led by a military government and that it would hold elections within a reasonable time without giving dates. However, junta did Issoufou said that the civilian transition should take into account the appointment of a civilian transition president, one with professional qualities, intellectual and moral probity will gradually be lifted depending on the implementation of the West African bloc's request, according to Isufu. Via Africa TV, Fatmata Fati.
And from that report there by Fatmata Fati, we will now take a break and come back shortly with the remaining of the story. Stay with us, we'll be right back. Welcome back, and you are watching the World Today News Bulletin on Africa TV. And now to the rest of the stories. Now, the staff of AfriMed International Hospital in Bruceby have refused to accept salary pay cuts from their employer and began a protest on Monday. They also demanded the resignation of the AfriMed administrator, Modu Sise, and the finance manager amid claims of unlawful termination of contract. Ibrahim Akebi Sonko tells us more of that.
During a protest at the AfriMed premises on Monday, the spokesperson of the staff, Abdullah Ayoub, said their rights were being violated. The staff also accused the hospital's management of not taking their welfare seriously.
The face masks they are selling for the escorts and other patients, but we are not being provided with the proper masks. We are given cloth masks to use, which according to WHO recommendation is not ideal to use at hospital level or at clinical level. So we finding it difficult to get appropriate masks like the surgical masks. The challenge we have, if we go to the pharmacy, because they are told to sell it, so they are selling it. Even if a staff wants the mask, he has to buy it, because they are not providing enough for all the staff.
According to Job, the staff will not go back to work unless their demands are met. He told journalists that the hospital administrator has to either resign or be fired by the hospital if they are to go back to work.
Immediate refund of the 25%, deducted from our salary illegally and unlawfully, and it was done forcefully.
Yes! Yes!
2. Immediate resignation of Mr. Sise, hospital administrator, due to the following reasons. 1. He fails in his primary duty as an administrator, which is to maintain a cordial working relationship between the general staff and the management. 2. He is responsible for building an atmosphere of mistrust between the management and the general staff. This is evidenced by conflicting messages he put on memos. 3. He shows no regard to staff welfare, which includes stoppage of strike duties and significant reduction in leave encashment. Another point is, he has no respect for diplomacy. This is evidenced by his handling of this situation from the beginning.
The AfriMed staff also want the hospital's financial manager sacked. They accuse her of failing to make timely payments of salaries, cover shifts, and public holidays.
As a finance manager, in timely paying of monthly salary, cover shifts, and public holidays. This is evidenced by extremely late payment of salaries during the Tobaski period. She has a poor attitude towards client and the general staff. She shows blatant disrespect to the general staff and their welfare. This is evidenced by her action in cutting 25% of salaries, even after majority of the staff failed to give their consent for it.
Modu Sise, the administrator of AfriMed International Hospital, who declined to speak to iAfrica TV on cameras, said the hospital's management has since Friday apologized to the staff for the pay cut. He also said the financial manager have ordered to refund those staff whose salaries are cut. Sise also said the hospital will not extend the contract of staff whose contracts are due to expire this month. He said this is as a result of financial constraints the hospital continue to face due to the coronavirus pandemic. Reporting for Africa TV, I am Ibrahim Kebi Sonko.
And from the report there, next we head to South Africa because the fight against gender-based violence continues to gain momentum in the country as women and some men held protests to denounce the act and submit their demands to the authorities. The anti-gender-based violence movement is the latest group to get to the street to vent their anger and frustrations as the trend remains unchanged. The country's president had promised to support an emergency response plan to eradicate violence against women. He has more details of that in this report.
Gender-based violence here in South Africa just continues to escalate. In fact, it dramatically increased after government announced the national state of disaster to fight the coronavirus pandemic.
Call them out. I'm not going to be grateful for you for doing the right thing. Call them out. So we're here together.
Protest marches against gender-based violence have now become a familiar sight here in South Africa. Frustrated women and some men often take to the streets to voice their concerns and list their demands from government.
What do we want? Justice! What do you want it?
This time, the anti-gender-based violence movement staged a peaceful protest at the Union Buildings, South Africa's government seat. They say they're here to show solidarity with victims of gender-based violence, to also show their exasperation and anger with the lack of change in the situation.
These violent, dehumanizing acts carried out by men have scared our nation and have instilled fear in the hearts and lives of many of us. We do not want to hear about another life being taken by man. We do not want to hear about a brutal, violent act committed by a man. The promises of change we hear time and time again have not taken place. Today we remind you again, enough is enough.
These young protesters, mainly from universities, came with a list of demands.
We demand an immediate report from all levels of government detailing what it has genuinely done to combat gender-based violence. We demand frequent meetings with government officials and stakeholders on women and queer empowerment in the community. We demand bail to be removed as a possibility for all those charged with and those with a history of sexual offences.
Other demands include that police be given a thorough gender-based violence sensitivity training. Their list of demands was handed over to a government representative from the South African presidency. Earlier, President Cyril Ramaphosa announced that 1.6 billion rand would be allocated to an emergency response plan that will focus on eradicating gender-based violence.
Our cries are still unheard. More women are dying. Money has been put into place to stop gender-based violence, but we still see more women dying, more children dying at the hands of men.
For how long is it just going to be women standing in this fight? We are not going to be silent no more.
On Monday, ministers who form part of the security cluster will address issues relating to the capacity of the criminal justice system to combat this scourge.
From that report there in South Africa, now we come back home because the Gambia government shut down places of worship in March and reopened them again in June after 3 months. On August 6, the country shut down mosques again as community transmission of COVID-19 cases began to rise and had mosques, churches and other places of worship reopen again on August 28. But one Muslim cleric who has mixed feelings about this is Imam Bakausu Fofana. Umar Ahmad Toure tells us more of that.
Imam Bakausu Fofana said he never agreed with the government's decision to close mosques. The Imam believes the coronavirus does not exist in the mosque and that social distancing will allow devils to manipulate worshippers into losing concentration.
The closing of mosque was not necessary. The mosques were closed from the beginning of the pandemic in January up to August 2020. In these 8 months since the corona infection began, it has never infected anyone in the mosque and left others that are in the market. If you look at government records, presidents, doctors, ministers, and even police are infected or fear to be infected. But not even a single religious leader was infected. Corona had never infected any imam or marabu, so therefore it doesn't exist in the mosque.
Africa TV tried to confirm whether it was correct that no imam or marabu is infected with the virus, as Bakausu claims. However, the Director of Health Promotions and Education, Mamadou Njai, said he does not have such information at the time. Meanwhile, places of worship can now open 15 minutes before a congregational prayer is due and close immediately after prayers are completed. Imam Bakausu, who said he is visiting the Gambia to offer special prayers for the pandemic to vanish, also said he welcomes this latest decision to allow congregational prayers.
We thank Allah for the reopening of mosque, especially today is Friday. I came on Saturday and I was told that the country is in a lockdown and the mosques are closed and coronavirus is spreading wild. Since Casamas is not far from here, I said let me also go and witness things, because hearing the news and seeing things yourself are different. Let's face the difficulties together. Let's celebrate peace together. Let's pray for the difficulties to go away, and that's why I offer prayers on Saturday to Monday. On Tuesday, I sent an audio to President Adama Barrow and plead to him to reopen the mosque and allow people perform 5 daily prayers and Friday prayers. Yesterday, I received news that mosques are to be reopened on Friday and people will perform the congregational prayer. Just as we uphold the closure of the mosque, we also welcome the reopening similarly.
Bakausu said coronavirus has affected Islam in many ways, with closure of Islamic schools, mosques, and Islamic conferences. He commends Muslims for exercising patience during trying times and urges the government not to shut mosques again. Meanwhile, worshippers must wear face masks and observe social distancing alongside other preventive measures against the coronavirus, according to the new rules imposed by the government. For Africa TV, Omar Ahmad Toure.
And from that report there by Omar Ahmad Toure, finally to North Africa, because more than 50 million eligible Egyptian voters could be fined for not participating in a Senate election held in August 2020. According to the law, citizens who do not take part in elections should be fined more than $30, but others condemn the law, saying it is unfair. Authorities say the law is meant to persuade citizens to participate in elections. Let's have more details of that in this report.
More than half the Egyptian population could get prosecuted for not casting their ballot in the Senate election held earlier this month. The law stipulates that citizens who do not vote should be fined up to $31.5. That means if all those who fail to vote get fined, that could translate in $1.7 billion being raised through fines by the government.
The purpose of the law is not to push for fines, but rather create incentives for citizens to participate in the elections and increase the turnout. This is legislation, and the Elections Committee has to follow the procedures which the law enforces. The implementation of the fines is very hard because it has not been done before, and the numbers involved are very high.
According to the election law, citizens have the right to appeal against the fine. They're allowed by law to skip voting if they have a valid reason, such as travel, work commitment, or if they were sick. The Egyptian prosecution will have the huge task of investigating 54 million different cases on top of its already piled up workload.
It could be an additional burden, but it's the law and it has to be done. The prosecution has to issue the fine, then it moves it to court. The prosecution has the right to push for trial or not. If it wants, the prosecution will launch a quick investigation. I don't think it can go case by case.
Since 2011, the voting fines have always been an issue after all elections, but the fines have never been imposed. Yet it's still a subject that sparks debate in the Egyptian streets.
They must know why people didn't vote. For me, the voting centers were far from my new residence. The government is the reason the voting wasn't easy for us. It is unjust to impose fines. I wish the president would stop this process. People do not have enough money to get food. They can't pay fines. That should not happen. It's not fair.
Only 9 million Egyptians voted in the Senate election to choose 200 members. The Egyptian president appoints the remaining 100 members of the upper house. It only enjoys an advisory role. Therefore, it has much less power than the House of Representatives. It has become the norm for the fines issued to erupt after every election in Egypt. But because only 14% turned out to vote for the Senate, much more Egyptians could relate to it this time.
And that report there in Cairo, Egypt, eventually brings this news bulletin to an end. But for more details on this and other stories, as always, you can log on to our website on africa.tv. Once again, many thanks for the pleasure of your company. Thanks for watching. Stay safe and bye for now.
Lampi kan yawan kaspa o jibe ko fo fila banta ko do fila ila kaspa o sanna
ko do bar so ko tale ko wato ro ngam Mamadou Kumandi ba hello Mamadou abijan dron ko tarande du ko rimbala yende manan kaspa wala say ha bantale hadi pentiji yo okay ma batula